Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Chopra. Our focus right now is a 36-year-old nurse from Kerala who is at the center of a high-profile murder case in Yemen. Nimisha Priya from Kerala has been sentenced to death for the alleged murder of a Yemeni national, Talal Mahdi, in 2017. Government of India says that it is extending all possible help to Nimisha and her family at this point in time. Nimisha's death sentence has been approved by the President of Yemen and her execution is scheduled to take place within a month. In an attempt to retrieve her passport, Nimisha Priya allegedly sedated Talal Mahdi in 2017. However, Mahdi died from an overdose. It is reported that Priya and her colleague allegedly dismembered Mahdi's body and then disposed it off in a water tank. A trial court sentenced Nimisha Priya to death in 2018 and the verdict was upheld by the Yemen Supreme Court in 2023. This death sentence has now been approved by the President of Yemen as well. Nimisha Priya moved to Yemen in 2011 for work as a nurse. While her husband and daughter returned to India in 2014 due to financial problems, Nimisha Priya remained in Yemen. Priya opened a clinic in Yemen in partnership with Talal Mahdi as a legal requirement for foreign nationals. However, Mahdi doctored documents to claim that he was married to Nimisha Priya and allegedly tortured her both physically and mentally. According to Priya, Mahdi had confiscated her passport to stop her from returning to India and used drugs to control her. Priya reported the abuse to local authorities, but the cops arrested and detained her instead. In a desperate attempt to escape, Nimisha Priya reportedly drugged Talal Mahdi in 2017, but the dosage resulted in the latter's death. Is there anything that India can do at this point in time? We take this conversation forward. I have with me K.R. Subhash Chandran, a Supreme Court lawyer. We also have with us Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former diplomat, Major General Sudhakarji, a defense expert, and Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. I begin this conversation with Mr. K.R. Subhash Chandran, who is representing Nimisha Priya. Mr. Chandran, can you explain how exactly are you assisting Nimisha Priya?
So actually, when we came to know about this Nimisha's case, she was charged for murder. We realized that she is a victim of the war. Actually, this incident, the alleged incident, happened during the internal conflict in Yemen, and she was not extended any kind of legal defense there. She was not represented by a lawyer. She didn't get a proper legal defense there. So we decided, and she was forced to sign many documents in Arabic language. She was not well known to the Arabic language. So there was no interpreters, no media, this means document translators. So she had to sign in the Arabic language many documents, and which led to her capital punishment. So the trial court convicted her, sentenced her for capital punishment, which was upheld by the First Appellate Court and the Supreme Judicial Council there. Then yesterday, the unfortunate news came that the President of the Yemen has given the approval for the execution. So still there are some possibility. We are hopeful because this punishment was given according to the Sharia law. The Sharia law prevails in Yemen. So according to Sharia law, if the family of the victim is giving the pardon by receiving the blood money, the accused can be saved their life. So in this case, the family is not yet discussed about, they were not came to the negotiation table. So the initial negotiations or the initial discussions were happened with the tribal leaders only in Yemen.
But Mr. Chandran, has the family refused to come to the negotiation table, or is there some other problem that's being faced?
So actually, the Indian government has, when we raised this issue, when we approached the Delhi High Court for the travel the travel permission for the Miss Nimisha's mother, so the government has extended their support by appointing a lawyer there. So she was represented by a lawyer in the Supreme Judicial Council, who then later on informed us he is ready to negotiate with the tribal leaders, for which they demanded 40,000 USD, means around 38 lakh Indian rupees, which we paid in 2 installments. We have paid around 38 lakhs to this the local lawyer there for the negotiation with the tribal leaders. They called it for pre-negotiation money, and which we paid to them. Then the same Nimisha Priya International Action Council raised this amount from the public, and we have transferred this through Indian Embassy. So still we didn't get any relief. So we are requesting, we are urging the Indian government to intervene to this issue. Then now only the Indian government can intervene to this issue for reaching out to the family, the victim's family, and bringing them to the negotiation table. So we are not asking the government to pay even a single penny. The Nimisha Priya International Action Council is ready to raise the fund, whatever amount is demanded by the family as blood money. But we need the support from the Indian government to bring them to the negotiation table.
But Ms. Chandran, I want to understand, you must have read all the papers and the procedures. You said Nimisha Priya was not extended any sort of legal help as far as local help in Yemen is concerned. But what really was the case, was the basis of the court's decision then?
Yeah, that's why she had to sign in many papers, and which is later came to know that that's some admission. She admitted this her alleged offense there, but she at that time she was not given any kind of support. There is no translators were not there, no interpreters were there. So she signed many Arabic documents, which led to her capital punishment, as it was her admission in that stage. So then the same punishment was upheld by the first appellate court, and the Supreme Judicial Council reviewed it and rejected her appeal. So this is happened. She didn't get a proper trial because it was during the internal conflict in Yemen, the serious internal conflict in Yemen, and there was no lawyer. Then the judge appointed a local lawyer from the legal service authority who could not discuss with her in a proper language. So the language barriers, the internal conflict, this led to her capital punishment there.
But is a death sentence a rare punishment that has been awarded for this alleged murder, or is it as per, as you explained earlier, Sharia law?
See, actually what had happened is she is accused in the murder case as well as mutilating the body of the deceased. Yes. So I spoke to her personally. She said this happened. She was trying to sedate him and to get her passport to run away from there. So the sedative was overdosed, and he unfortunately the victim passed away. So she said, "Sir, I committed that. I agreed that I committed this crime, but I did not mutilate the body, or I am not aware of that who has done this." So, but unfortunately, she was accused in both charges. And according to Muslim law, according to Sharia law, the punishment for mutilating the body is bigger than for the death sentence. So that these facts led to her capital punishment, and which was upheld by both the appellate court and judicial council.
And Ms. Chandran, have you managed to read some of the documentation that was perhaps done by the courts or the prosecution, the local prosecution there? On what basis, or is it simply, like you said, on the basis of some communication with Nimisha Priya and she's made to sign certain papers, or is there some evidence that was collected which has led the prosecution to come to this conclusion that she in fact was the one who also mutilated the body?
Actually, unfortunately, the lawyer engaged by the Indian embassy, we repeatedly requested him to provide the trial court judgment, the documents from the trial court. Even if it's in Arabic language, we said we will translate it and we will come to know what kind of charges are there. But till date, the first trial court judgment came in 2020. And thereafter, in 2022, the first appellate court judgment came. Then 23, the Supreme Judicial Council's verdict came. But till now, we have not provided. Every time the lawyer will ask money, and which for the judgments also, we have paid $2,000 to the lawyer, but he has not provided the copy of the judgments or any documents. So that's why we are in a very handicapped situation. We are unable to travel to Yemen. There is nobody now, Indian diaspora or no Indian mission is there to help us. So that's why we will have to depend on a single person or a few persons in Yemen, local persons, who are not extending up to our expectation, who are not extending their support to our expectation, even after paying them. Even
and
after
you said $40,000 has already been paid towards some sort of as a pre-negotiation fees.
Yeah, they called it like pre-negotiation fee with the tribal leaders, which we have paid twice in 2 installments. First, we paid $20,000 in the first installment, and in the last Friday we paid $20,000 as the final installment, which they have demanded. and still we didn't get any kind of relief through these negotiators or the intermediators. So now only as being the major stakeholder in this issue, the government of India should intervene. The MEA can intervene. MEA can request the Yemeni government to find out the victim's family. And we repeatedly say that we repeatedly request the government that government should intervene. We are ready to pay the amount, whatever amount the family demands. We are ready to raise from the society, and we will pay that. Government need not to pay a single penny for that blood money.
Okay, all right. Mrs. Subhash Chandran, thank you so much for joining us to take us through those pertinent details. I want to bring in Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee at this point in time. Ambassador Mukherjee, is there anything that the government of India can do at this point in time? You've heard in detail where the case stands and what really was the procedure or lack thereof which was followed in Yemen when the entire death sentence was awarded. But at the same time, $40,000 already paid for a pre-negotiation fees. It does seem that this is also a little bit in a shady territory at this point in time. This seems almost like extortion money that's being taken, because there is a family here that's entirely helpless on what to do.
Competent lawyer who's handling the case, but I'm very well aware of how the Sharia law operates, as I'm sure Mr. Chandran does. The Sharia law operates without any intervention by any government on either side. It's a very simple system. It operates across the Middle East, including in Saudi Arabia, etc. It has been utilized many times in the past to save Indians who've been caught in very difficult situations from execution. In this particular case, it's very simple. The blood money, according to Sharia law, is used as compensation for the murder committed by the murderer. Whether you have actually committed the murder or not, to them is irrelevant. And since it's governed by a kind of tribal leader system, like our Panchayati Raj system, the negotiation is done between the member of the family through the tribal leaders with the member of the family who is the victim. The amount is decided through negotiation. It is paid and the victim is released. That's how it works. Now, in the case of Yemen, as Mr. Chandran has correctly pointed out, there was an active case of civil war. There was breakdown of law and order. The lady concerned probably was coerced into signing documents in Arabic, which confirmed that she not only sedated and murdered this individual, but also participated in dismembering his body, which is considered to be a most un-Islamic offense, because like the Christians, they believe that if only the body which is intact should be buried. If the body is disinterred, that person can never reach salvation. That's their theory of Sharia law. So that's supposed to be a double whammy if the body has been dismembered, so-called. So under those circumstances, given the desperation of the case and the fact that the execution according to their law, Sharia law, has to be carried out on the 28th day of the presidential pardon being rejected, it means that there are just barely 4 weeks. There is no Indian embassy in Yemen. So there is the interest of any remaining Indian diaspora. There are none, I'm told, very few, are looked after by the neighboring country embassy, Indian embassy. I'm sure Mr. Chandran would be able to tell us which country that is. They would need to persuade the Yemeni authorities to allow either the mother or the daughter of the nurse to travel to Yemen to negotiate with the tribal leaders. It's all done across the table. There's nothing shady about it. The money is handed over, the victim is released. The problem here is how to get the family member over. They are not going to negotiate with the Indian government. That is not within their law at all. It has to be done between the member of the two families concerned with the tribal leaders present. The problem here in this, the way it has been explained, is how to get the members over. What has been given as pre-trial money is pure and simple extortion. It never happens. Usually what happens, for instance, in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, where I have seen how it happens, there is no money exchanged earlier because there's an Indian embassy there, there's a local lawyer who is hired, who is, I presume, an honest person, and no, there is no pre-trial money. This pre-trial money, unfortunately, is pure and simple extortion. But if we want to save this poor woman's life, then very quickly the family member, one family member, preferably a male family member. The tribal leaders don't like negotiating with women. It's a very conservative society. A male family member should be allowed to travel to Yemen, pay the money, and bring the lady back. That's the only way to do it. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Madhav Narapad, your thoughts on the same as well, sir, on the case so far, and what really is it that can be done at this point in time? Should the Indian government, as Ambassador Mukherjee also pointed out, that the tribal leaders will want to speak to a family member or someone from the community rather than the government, but is there something that the government can do at this point in time to perhaps make that process a little bit easier?
Well, Devika, quite frankly, it's a very difficult case. And unfortunately, signing those papers, no matter the fact that they were in Arabic and she did not understand Arabic, is taken as a confession of guilt. Now, possibly the papers also included her doing this horrible deed, which she has denied doing, of dismembering the body. And yes, the ambassador is quite correct. The body has to be intact. And that is why, for example, execution is carried out by, basically by means in which the body is not intact anymore. But I'd like to say it's a very difficult case, Devika. And yes, the only hope is that the regional countries would intervene in the matter. But Yemen is not the same as the GCC countries or whatever, frankly. Yemen, the man is always right, even when he is wrong. And if you're an Arab man and Indian woman, well, that goes double. So this is a problem that's a mountain that will have to be climbed. And the second point is I agree that this is by extortion money, but unfortunately, this is what happens in this kind of a situation. Yeah, there's absolute lawlessness in Yemen. There's no real government in Sana'a. It's under constant attack, even now, by Israel and by the United States for the justified reason that the Yemeni Houthis are attacking shipping in the waters near their country. So the whole thing is in a great sense of turmoil. Now, our diplomats are first-class people. They would be knowing the Yemen also like the back of their hands. If there's a way out, I'm sure they'll find it. But I must say that, Devika, that going by what I know of that particular location, they would like to make an example of people. And in this case, they would like to make an example of Indians who are working with Arabs or foreigners who are working with Arabs. And this kind of a horrible example will be a warning sign. In my personal view, keeping oneself in a conflict zone is extremely unsafe, whatever be that conflict zone. And the sooner one gets out, the better. The family did well to clear out in 2014 itself. Unfortunately, this lady stayed behind, possibly for financial reasons, support her family. But it's an extremely difficult situation to resolve. And so far as the family member is concerned, well, the question is even travel to Yemen is problematic. And once you reach there, you're entirely at the mercy of the Yemeni authorities. So I don't know if it can be conducted via video conferencing. I think one thing the government can try and do is to arrange a video conference, and then whatever the ransom money that is negotiated, pay. I think all that the government can do is to ensure that a video conference takes place rather than physical travel on one reason or the other. Could be ill health or a relative or something like that. But it looks to me, Devika, to be a very, very difficult case. But I'm certain that the government of India will be doing everything possible to try and ensure this, that this young lady, who must have been terribly desperate and horribly badly treated, to have even, to have gone this far in her desperation. Well, I just pray that this young lady is brought back to India safe and sound. Thank you, Devika.
Absolutely. Major Sudhakarji, your thoughts on this particular case, and if there is any sort of past precedent that can perhaps be applied here as well. And at the same time, what is it that we also now need to understand and learn as society as a whole? What is the message that then needs to go out from the government? Because ultimately, this is a situation where a young woman whose husband and child have come back to India decided to stay on in Yemen for certain financial reasons.
Yeah, Devika, good afternoon. Thank you for getting me to your show. And in fact, all the distinguished and very esteemed panelists, they deserve to have the last say on the subject. Being a military man, to be very honest, I am a novice being exposed for the first time, given the complexity of the situation. Mindful of the fact that it is an individual case, it's not a collective case, and also mindful of the fact that Yemen has been going through a civil war since 2015 or even before that. And there is a Sharia law, and complimenting Ambassador Ma'am, the way she has outlined, perhaps that is the way forward. That is a tangible and well crystallized roadmap which Government of India could refer to as a guideline. But what comes to my mind, being a student of geopolitics, there are too many things happening around. It's not merely an individual case. Without diverting our discussion, there are geopolitical angle. I'll not deflect on the issue onto geopolitics. But what comes to my mind, the only person who can actually give clemency or negate the approval is the person himself who has actually approved, the Amir of Yemen. And for that man to do so, perhaps what comes to my mind is that the leadership in Iran, they're the ones who are respected, who are heard by people in Yemen. Having spent time in Oman and neighboring countries for some time, whatever little I have understood, Yemenis at the moment, they couldn't care less, they don't listen. But the only country they will listen to is Iran. If not Iran, then maybe the second best option could be Qatar. So if that be so, and having exhausted all the options, let me answer your first question. Is it one of its kind, or is it precedented? Has it happened before? To the best of my knowledge in my lifetime, I am hearing a case like this for the first time. So to actually do anything and secure the release of Nimisha, I personally feel it will be a kind of unprecedented, it will set a precedence of its kind. Therefore, it compels me to think that it's about time this also should be factored in by the Minister of External Affairs of India and should start formulating a kind of a plan of this kind in future. If it has happened to one lady, it could happen to others also in times ahead, because the global dynamics is undergoing frequent change in 21st century. That is one part. Second part, as a solution provider, I couldn't compliment Professor Nalapat enough. In fact, he deserves to have a last kind of a recommendation on the subject. But what actually comes to my mind again is that yes, under the prevailing circumstances, I do not see any physical movement of the male member as recommended by Ambassador Ma'am. At the moment, one is not very sure that the movement taking place to Yemen, whether he will be safe enough to firstly go discharge the mandate, carry out the task safely and come back to India. That is not assured and guaranteed. And being a military man also, I always think ahead, because the end state has to be clear. What is the end state? End state is to secure the release of the girl, bring her back safely to India. If that be so, until unless the Amirs actually, cancels the approval, I do not think there will be any kind of respite or any kind of pardon being given to this particular sentence. Last but not the least is that I am very, very optimistic, and we have the best of diplomats, notwithstanding the fact the diplomatic missions are absent there, Indian diaspora is not present. I just got a message from one of my friends who happened to serve with me in Oman, that there are still some Indians, some well-meaning Indians. Perhaps Mr. Chandran will be able to point a finger on those people. Some Indians who can come to our rescue and help. If not, Ministry of External Affairs, I am given to understand, they have come very close to finding a solution. Now, what is that solution? I am unable to see, having heard Ambassador ma'am, that it is Sharia law, it's family to family, government has got nothing to do. So, notwithstanding the dismal picture that we are discussing today, one is only optimistic at this juncture to looking forward to a solution and getting early release of Nimisha and bring her back to India at the earliest and close the case forever. Thank you.
Right,
Devika,
absolutely.
can I make a clarification here, please?
Yes, Ambassador Mukherjee, go ahead.
Let me clarify that this is a very common procedure. I know of several such cases. And in fact, when it's a family-to-family negotiation, it is actually relatively simple. The problem here is the active state of civil war in Yemen.
Yes.
Otherwise, the two families get together and they agree on an amount. Very often, the family of the victim is quite reasonable, keeping in mind, for instance, the financial constraints on the other side. Once the blood money, as they call it under Sharia law, is decided, no third party can intervene. Therefore, the Amir, having given his decision, he cannot do anything until the blood money is paid. When the blood money is paid, the family of the victim will themselves tell the Amir that we have accepted the blood money, it's money in compensation for the murder, the lady can go free. In this particular case, I would agree that there is a safety issue here, but unfortunately there has to be a contact. If it's not possible to travel, then somebody suggested video conferencing. I'm not sure if they would accept that, but maybe they would. There has to be a direct communication between the family of the victim and the family of the person who's been sentenced. The money has to be discussed and decided in that conversation. A procedure has to be worked out by which the money is given and the family of the victim signs the paper saying that they are satisfied with the amount given and the person can go free. It is not something that is not uncommon. It is very, very common. It also prevails in Pakistan. In Pakistan, this is routinely done. The blood money is paid and the person is released. And according to the Sharia law, no third party can intervene. And moreover, let us also not forget that no matter how much influence Iran has over the Houthis, Yemen still remains a deeply Sunni country where the Sharia law is followed according to Sunni tradition, not according to Shiite tradition. The Sunni traditions, in fact, for those who understand the Sharia and the Quran, as I do, since I studied it in my postgraduate studies in Delhi University, is quite simple. It's clearly laid out how it's done. It's not complicated. The only complication is the fact that Yemen is in a state of active civil war.
Right.
And I agree with Professor Nalapur that it is a very difficult case, and my fear is that she should not get executed before the mandatory 4 weeks, because in that case, there is nobody on this world who can help her. And I personally am not optimistic about the outcome. Thank you, Devi.
Okay, I thank on that note all of our experts and guests for joining us on this broadcast to take this pertinent conversation forward. That's all the time that we have, viewers, for this particular conversation. With that, we slip into a very short break.